Hello and welcome. I'm Jake, and I'm alright. Today we'll be talking over a modern classic in gaming, Bloodborne, FromSoft's 2015 entry for the PS4. Bloodborne has been praised for its Lovecraftian horror, fast-paced action, and amazing world design that's left players talking about it for years. And in addition, it's been upgraded to PS5, which apparently runs at 60 FPS and looks really pretty, and I'm sure somebody somewhere has even been able to play it, and that PS5s are real. Bloodborne has also had its life extended by multiple community members who are still talking about it 6 years on, like Vadi Vidya and Jesus Here's Toast. And yet, one thing has been missing. No one has guided players into having the optimal experience when going back to enjoy Bloodborne again or for the first time. And although I may not have the personal or professional experience to tell you why a nice Chianti would pair well with your liver, I do have the prerequisite 10,000 hours to be considered a bona fide master in getting drunk and playing video games. You stupid fuck! And I'm here to tell you that despite what Mountain Dew and Doritos would like you to think, that's not the best fuel for your debaucherous nights, ignoring your wife and children and trying to increase your KD ratio. Instead, I, with my many hours of experience, have put forth a classy alternative experience for you to enjoy while playing Bloodborne, which is why tonight we will be having a blood red wine to pair deliciously with our bloodlust and greed that will fill our souls and minds as we travel through Yharnam.
Before that, I probably should have made this more of a thing.
In the business, we would call this a congruent pairing, as the bitter bite of this bold red wine will surely go deliciously with getting murdered over and over again.
Doesn't the lava lamp kind of look like a mom holding a baby swaddled in her arms?
It's very Death Stranding. It's a very Death Stranding lava lamp kind of situation going on. Little Easter egg, there's a little baby. A BB behind me. This is Death Stranding. This is Death Stranding merchandise right here. You can see the little fetus developing right there. Eventually that'll cause the end of the world or whatever the fuck that is. I love that in Death Stranding, the way you con the child is you shake it until it stops crying. That's horrible parenting. That's not how babies work, Hideo. More like hideously poor baby care techniques in Death Stranding.
Sorry. Did I wake you up?
Okay. Alright. Tonight we'll be having a Apothic dark bold red blend. Let's see. Vintage 2019 with a deep and rich flavor from the sultry hills of California.
Inspired by the Apotheca, a mysterious place where some of the earliest wine was blended and stored, Apothic wines offer a truly unique wine experience.
There's freedom in darkness. It draws our curiosity and piques the senses. Apothic Dark blends bold layers of dark blueberry and blackberry with opulent notes of coffee and dark chocolate with a rich, smooth finish. Yeah, pretty good. That almost sounds like an item description that somebody would hyper-focus on for 6 years and make a million videos about and come up with some large, overarching metaphor that would benefit the game story or something. I sent 2 letters back in autumn, you must not have got... Bloodborne opens on the unsettling, gruff voice of steampunk Abe Lincoln, convincing you to sign a contract that you surely did not read the terms and conditions of. You know what would be funny is if... Oh! I'm gonna put this down for a moment. You're then thrust into the city of Yharnam, where the streets are crawling with all sorts of monsters and creatures and ghouls that will surely kill you many times, just like every FromSoft game. Unfortunately, I didn't play Bloodborne at the time of release because I was too busy being called slurs by 12-year-olds on Xbox Live. But, like everyone else, I was wholly aware of every FromSoft game that came out, even though I hadn't played any at the time, purely because nobody could shut the fuck up about it after they died in the tutorial. For me though, I came to Bloodborne after playing through Dark Souls 3 thinking it was fun, doing most of it with friends, and then playing Dark Souls 1. And Dark Souls 1, where I fell in love with it, which is kind of an entirely different tone and pace of Bloodborne. But I followed it up immediately afterwards because I couldn't fucking stand getting through Dark Souls 2. I don't know if that's a hot take or not. But by the time I came to Bloodborne, I was fully invested in the role-playing, combat systems, and the lore that you had to sort out by, once again, reading a bunch of shit and watching some Australian guy, I think, talk for hours and hours on end. And as soon as I started playing, I fell in love with the look of Bloodborne. The cityscape and gothic interiors, I think, are far beyond anything else that FromSoft has delivered. Also has the best Moonlight Greatsword. That being the, kind of secretive sword that's been included in every FromSoft game, I think for like the last 25 years. Except I have seen some video of the one in the Demon Souls remake, and I'm sure that that's a real game for a real system, the PS5, that really exists, and it's totally not some sort of psyop made by lizard people to convince people who like video games like me that their life is hopeless and they'll never obtain a PS5. Bloodborne offers up a ton of locations and enemy types to plow through. Personally, some of my favorites are the little porky boys that you find in the swamp and then towards the ending area of the game. Their sweet porky blood echoes do pair well with this red wine. Oh, the sassy gun maids in the Chalice dungeons. The ones that bend over and look like they have scoliosis. Oh, and the werewolves, because it felt so good to be able to crush them after them being so intimidating in the early game. Oh, and the rally system made fighting the city folk of Yharnam much more appealing than piling through some undead settlers in Lothric, where if you get poked by one dumbass rusty sword in the back, you gotta run 3 minutes back to a bonfire just so you can get a perfect run so when you meet the boss, you're not screwed.
Look at this. I'm losing to someone who sucks at fighting games.
Whereas in Bloodborne, if you got poked a little bit, as long as you met it with pure violent aggression, you would get that health back, as long as you sliced the enemy down quick enough. Which fell perfectly in line with the fact that as your character went through the night fighting these beasts, their bloodlust grew, and thus they were rejuvenated by taking the blood echoes from others. Why the fuck didn't they ever bring that back? That could have worked perfectly in Sekiro. Probably would have been awesome in the upcoming Elden Ring too. One enemy that is trash though were the sack guys. See, as your insight grew, which basically as you experienced more things in the game, fought more bosses, discovered new locations, your insight meter would grow, represented in the lore as you gain more knowledge and come closer to some sort of elder truth and divine knowledge, which basically comes down to in the game a little point system that allows you to buy cute outfits. But the sack guys appear in higher numbers when your insights increase. Probably because they want some of those sweet, sweet eyes that are lining your newfound brain. And if they catch you just right, kick you in the fucking chest and bag you up, they'll take you to jail for being too smart. See, in Bloodborne, education is kind of like getting drunk. There's a nice sweet area where you're just a little more sociable and better at talking to people, more charismatic. But then you get a little too much and your head explodes and you see nightmare creatures hanging off all the buildings. And the bosses, fuck. The Orphan of Cause, fast-paced and iconic boss arena, and he beats you to death with a fucking placenta. The feminine urge to beat somebody with a bloody baby sack. Father Gascoigne, another great boss and his terrible attempts at fatherhood. You fight him in a cemetery, and his final form is the werewolf that you've been conditioned to fear up to that point. Which is a good closing to what I consider to be the opening act of the game, because it shows you kind of the juxtaposition between hunters and the beasts they swear to fight. And Gehrman, the first hunter, holds true to his name. He's kind of like a culmination of all the tactics that you've used to fight the beasts throughout the game. Except now he twists it back onto you, so all the quick dodges, firearm assists, and varied attacks are kind of mirrored back at you in a really cool culminating fight. And really the only bosses I don't give a shit about are Murgo, the One Reborn, and like the Witch of Himwick, but they all have their place in the lore and are largely enjoyable. Even Celestial Emissaries were fun for me, slapping around a bunch of fucking aliens around a sunflower. It's like violent gardening in space. And all these bosses and enemies have tons of variations that are only found in the Chalice dungeons, which are the short, I think for the most part randomly generated optional areas you can go through to fight some even new bosses, like Queen Yarnum herself at the very end. They're cool because they represent kind of this whole untouched area where you can go to farm gyms to increase your weapons or gain more blood echoes. Unfortunately, I think the community has found that the best dungeon is the Cum dungeon, so I don't know about that one, I guess. Bloodborne is a great game that illustrated that the Soulsborne style of gameplay really was here to stay. It managed to change some minor aspects, but still pack a punch and was widely loved by all audiences. It really did show that, FromSoft's design could extend well past Demon Souls, Ruins, or the walls of Lothric in Dark Souls. And you can see how the positive reception of Bloodborne shaped a lot of future developments at FromSoftware. I mean, even Dark Souls 3, which was kind of in development, I believe, at the same time, had a lot faster gameplay, and Sekiro really took on the quick dodge mechanics and a lot of the fast-paced swordplay that was seen by, Lady Maria in the Clock Tower. But most of all, after you get past the horrifying imagery and the grueling enemies, and truthfully the stuttering in some more intensive sections, Bloodborne is an amazing, beautiful game. But alas, it's always going to be nice to get a nice glass of large red wine, kick your feet up, and enjoy a session of Bloodborne on a nice dark evening. Because fucking wine is gross. Bloodborne was the first Strand type game.